Welcome to Her Handmade Hustle Unplugged, a podcast for all women with a creative business who want to learn more about how to make money doing something they love. I'm Joanne Pearce, a female entrepreneur myself, 15 years experience running my own handmade stationery business, Vintage Twee. I'm an established seller on two of the biggest handmade marketplaces, so I've got a whole load of advice to share about how to start and run your own successful creative business. I'm also a wife and a mother, so I get the struggles of trying to do it all while you're raising a family. It's hard. Alongside running Vintage Twee, I'm also a mentor for other women like me who desperately want to work for themselves but just need that bit of support to get going and get their business dream off the ground. I'm a friendly northerner, I'm open and honest with a huge heart and a real fighting spirit, and I'm living proof that you can achieve anything that you set your mind to, even in the face of adversity. This podcast celebrates the selflessness, strength, and resilience of women in business. So if you're ready to ditch the 9 to 5 and learn how to start your own successful creative business, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Her Handmade Hustle Unplugged podcast. And today, welcome to the Forgotten Dreams Club. It's a club I think we're all a member of, and not necessarily by choice. Have you ever just woken up one day and just thought, what about me? Like, remember when I wanted to go touring around America, or when I wanted to take dancing classes, or start a business, or try my hand at pottery, or open my own cafe, live in France. Whatever your dream was, you sometimes wake up thinking about it, while you're knee deep in the stresses of your current life and situation. You're shouting at your husband or your kids because they're breathing too loud, or you just simply can't hear your name called anymore. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, what the hell happened to me and my dreams? Where did they go? Why did they go? And did they even go at all? And if they are still there, buried underneath this never-ending pile of washing and massive life admin and caring responsibilities and an invisible cloak that is hiding the real you underneath, that one that has always dreamed of being a writer or a baker or owning a little tea room by the sea. Yeah, that's me. Well, today we are going to unearth that person who is hidden underneath all of that crap, because she's in there. She's just been too knackered to find the strength to burrow her way out of all the stuff that has got in her way. Well, we are going to be putting you at the centre of this episode today. And we're going to look at, 10-year-old you, what she wanted. 20-year-old you, what she wanted. 30-year-old you. All these versions of yourself that had dreams and visions and goals and ambitions. We're going to look at them. And we're going to look at her. And we're going to set her free today. So in today's episode, we're going to look at exactly what your dreams were. Why we abandoned them. The usual culprits, let's be honest: work, money, kids, life in general. We're going to look at whether or not dreams expire and what we can do to rekindle our old dreams. Can we even rekindle them? Is it even possible? You might be sat there thinking, oh God, I'm too old to do that now, or it's just not possible and I haven't got the money or the time or the energy. Well, I've got news for you, right? Your time on this planet is going to come to an end one day. And that's it. You either did it or you didn't. And if you didn't, can you make peace with that? I honestly think this is why I try everything. I know, even at the age of 41, that I can still achieve some of the dreams that I had as a little girl, as a teenager, as an enthusiastic 20-year-old with the world at her feet, totally oblivious to the absolute shitstorm that was going to explode in her face a decade later. As I was writing the notes for this episode, I was in my favourite little coffee shop out in the hills where I always go to write about my podcast and ideas and everything that flows into my head. And the song Dreams by Gabrielle came on. Just as I was opening my notebook to write this episode about the forgotten dreams, I just thought that was a good sign to do this episode today. We are acknowledging that, yes, life happens, but so does growth and reinvention. And we're also going to be looking at the science of creativity and neuroplasticity, how our brains are actually capable of rewiring themselves and learning new skills, even into your 60s and beyond. It's amazing. So there's literally no excuses anymore, right? And I promise you, by the end of this episode, you're going to want to take one step at least towards making that dream of yours, whatever it may be, truly happen. So let's talk about the dreams that we once had, because I want us to remember what we used to want before life and all its responsibilities got in the way, right? I'm going to take you now right back to your childhood. And that's a time that isn't clouded by self-doubt. It's a time that you believed in yourself 100% for the most part. And a time when anything seemed possible. So, okay, what was your childhood dream? Like, talking about when you were maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, as far back as you can remember. So mine, for example, was to be a dancer. Like, on stage, in West End shows, or maybe as a backing dancer on tour with pop stars. I just always dreamed of being up there on that stage every night in these fabulous costumes. I'd have the hair done, the makeup on, sparkly outfit, I'd have my professional dancing shoes on. And I'd put on such an amazing show that people would just wait for me backstage afterwards so I could sign their programme. Do you remember when you used to do that when you were little and you used to go to the pantomime? You used to wait like at the backstage, didn't you, for the actors to come out and they sign your programme. I wanted to be that person that was signing some little girl's programme because their eyes had been transfixed on me the whole show. My mum and dad took me and my sister to a lot of shows when we were younger because my mum absolutely loved musicals. And I just used to be transfixed to the dancers. And I wasn't bothered about the main actors acting out their scenes. I was looking at the backing dancers all the time, wishing it was just me up there. And me and my sister, we actually had dancing lessons when we were young. And I absolutely loved it. Up until this one day when the girls who had been bullying me at school, they were there at the class too. Now, I must have been about 8 or 9 years old maybe, and I was having a pretty tough time at primary school. Like, that's to put it mildly. It totally destroyed me. I mean, I got bullied so bad emotionally that they drove me out of mainstream education from the age of like 10 years old. I couldn't go, couldn't face it. I spent years under the care of a psychologist, and I ended up being educated through one-to-one at home. And eventually I went to a small unit for kids who weren't able to attend school for various reasons, mainly those who had been expelled and had lots of other issues going on. But I was there. I got my exams in this unit, and yeah, I did really well, and I can throw that back in their face now. But at the time, it was pretty horrendous. Anyway, the bullies responsible for all of this were at my dance class this particular night. Now, I've never talked about this, not because it was such a really awful thing that happened, but mainly because my memories of it was that it hurt so damn much, I just don't like thinking about it. Even 32 years later, which is what it is now, it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But it was a very small component of a very large trauma that went on, probably for the best part of my childhood. So yeah, it hurt. Anyway, this particular evening, it was my turn to dance with Christine, the teacher. I'll always remember her name. I got up from my chair and I was wearing this black t-shirt, which said on it, the one and only. And I remember it so well, and not for the right reasons, unfortunately. And as I say, I was probably around 9 years old at this time, and I was starting to get, a bit of the inevitable puppy fat. I had a massive curly hair like Annie, so I was a target, which was one of the reasons why I got bullied. But I was already a self-conscious child, but I loved to dance. So I got up and I did my dance, and I think it was the cha-cha, if I remember correctly. And when my dance was over, I went back to my seat, and there was this piece of paper on there. And on the paper, there was a drawing of a pig with a mane of curly hair wearing a black t-shirt that said "the one and only" on it. And the bullies, these three girls, were sat there just giggling to themselves, when I found it. And obviously I burst into tears, being 9 years old, finding that on the chair. So now not only were they ruining school for me, they were now ruining the only thing that I had the confidence left to do, and that was my dancing. And from that day on, I never felt the same about it. And I'm mad at myself for not doing what 41-year-old Joanne would have done now, should anyone ever be so downright cruel. But I was like 9. And I'd already been emotionally beaten by these girls for a while. So instead of shoving their dancing shoes up their arses, I went home and I cried for weeks in the arms of my mum. Who knows if that one single event actually played a role in the reason why I lost my joy for dancing. I don't know. I did pick it up again when I was about 18 and I started to learn belly dancing, which everyone is always really surprised to hear when I tell them. I think they think it's a lot like pole dancing. It's really not. It's totally different. A lot of skill in belly dancing. And I danced actually for a few years in Turkish and Lebanese restaurants. I paid my way through university. But we all have these fantasy dreams when we're little, don't we? I remember when my sister was asked in primary school what she wanted to be. And I'm sure she said a traffic warden. Unusual choice, yeah. When I told my husband what the topic of this podcast was this week, I asked him, so what did you want to be when you were like really little? Now, at first, he said to me, well, can't really remember that. I mean, it's a long time ago. Probably nothing. I mean, thank God he had more ambitions after I met him, right? But then about 10 minutes later, he just looked up and he went, oh yeah, I remember what I wanted to be. An assassin. Bloody hell. Honestly, I wish I hadn't have asked. But, not only did we have a fantasy job in our minds when we were younger, we also dreamt of grand adventures. All these places that we said we'd love to go and see. Maybe backpacking around Europe, touring around America, moving to the countryside and running your own B&B. Or my fantasy of opening up a vintage tea room, stroke antique store in a coastal town by the sea where I could just walk on the beach every day and just stare at nothing, I always wanted to do that. We had creative passions, and some of these will still be with you now because they are in your DNA. Things like painting, singing, writing, drawing, acting. They're all part of what makes you you. Maybe you do want to start your own business using one of these creative talents. And these things won't ever leave you because they make up who you are. And that's why they're always there, in the back of your mind. And I believe they always will be there until you answer their calling. So why do we abandon our dreams? Especially the ones that feel like they're interwoven with our soul and we can't separate ourselves from them. We're always thinking like, what if? Because what if I started that business selling my paintings? What if I took dancing lessons at age 50? What if I followed my dream of living by the sea, serving tea and scones in my little floral apron with my 1940s pink curls and red lippy? Yeah, my dream. I mean, right now, my reality is more like serving endless snacks in my PJs with my mum bun to a really impatient 5-year-old who, quite frankly, would be a right arsehole of a customer if she ever came into my tea room. I'd probably ban her. But, in all seriousness, we do abandon our dreams for many different reasons. But the main ones are usually money, time, and fear. And kids. And possibly husbands. Anyway, let's start with money. It's a huge reason. We don't usually have the financial means or stability at a younger age, or even now. Sometimes, we can still be struggling. And it's hard to put our dreams into action, especially if money is crucial to what you've always wanted to do. Like, say you did want to move to France and open a bakery. You're going to need some cash for that. Or maybe you would have liked to have gone to uni to study something that you've always wanted to do, but you couldn't afford it. So sometimes we abandon our dreams because of that practicality, and it's just not possible at that particular time in our lives. So it just goes by the wayside. Time. That's a massive barrier to our dreams too. We never have enough of it. Kids, jobs, life, responsibilities, health blips, breakups, redundancies, all these things set us back, not just months, but years in the process of ever reaching our dreams. I mean, how many times have you said how much you really want to do something, but it's quickly followed by one day? I do it all the time. And before you know it, 20 years has passed and you're older and you're more weathered from the storms of life. And there's even more barriers in your way than there was before. And fear, right? Fear is something that can paralyze our dreams to the point where they never, ever happen. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of what other people will think, fear of bloody everything. And this is the hardest pill to swallow, I think, because lack of money and time are like legit reasons. Like if you can't afford to do something and you literally have no time because you've got young kids or you work full time or you have ongoing health issues, like these are acceptable reasons to abandon your dreams. I get that. Sometimes it's just not possible. But fear, like that's something totally different. Something that you do actually have control over and is in your power to overcome. So don't let it stand in your way of your dream. Now, at 41 years old, I actually don't feel afraid to try anything that I want to do. That's probably the first time in my life that I've been able to say that. Even if it all goes horribly wrong and I end up bankrupt or looking a bit stupid or wasting a year of my life trying, like I actually don't care anymore. I think I would have rather have tried than spend the rest of my life wondering what if. That's just me. I did it when I asked my now husband out on a date for the very first time, right? I was a customer in IKEA, he worked there, and he was helping me pick some furniture out for this new apartment that I was renting. I got the vibe. I thought, yeah, I think he likes me. Yeah, he's spending a bit too much time with me trying to help me pick out this stuff. I mean, luckily I got the vibes because he bloody didn't. It took him far too long to clock them. I nearly had to get a wardrobe to buy me some more time to figure out if he liked me enough to risk looking like a total tit if I asked him out, and he said no. But luckily, he didn't say no. But when I asked him if he would ever have asked me out in that moment, do you know what he said? Probably not, because I thought you were a mystery shopper and I'd get sacked. Like, seriously, that was his answer. So if I hadn't have asked him out, we wouldn't be here today. 11 years later, and Eden wouldn't exist. So don't let fear be the reason that you ever abandon your dreams. Now, you might be sat there listening to this thinking, oh, but it's too late for me to try and pursue that dream I had of becoming an artist, or I wish I could go and, open up that cafe now by the sea, but I'm too old. Says who? There's a Finnish woman called Margit, I don't know how you say her name, Margit Tall, right? And she fulfilled her dream of bungee jumping at the age of 96. 96! Like, no one was stopping her. Apparently, right, she didn't even scream when she plunged 500 foot from this crane near her home in Finland. I mean, this was in 2014, so I presume she's dead now, bless her. But she went out on a high, didn't she? Like, quite literally. And it leads us to this question, like, do our dreams expire? I think we have to be a little bit realistic here because, yes, some of our dreams are going to have an expiration date. Although Margit, the Finnish lady, would probably suggest otherwise. But I do think it depends on the dream. For example, I think my dreams of being a West End, a Broadway dancer or whatever expired shortly after my 35th birthday when I became fat and pregnant with chronic backache. And I seem to have lost any rhythm that I ever had overnight. And now I'm only able to either do the hokey cokey or the bloody Macarena, right? That dream's probably long gone. I mean, I used to be a good dancer. Like, it's one of my favourite things to do. I think I danced most of my 20s away. Like, no wonder I felt so carefree in those days. But do they expire? And I think to some degree, they inevitably do because of things that we can't avoid, such as aging and maybe health issues. And it might not be physically possible to achieve the full dream anymore. But what's to say you can't adapt your dream so it fits with who you are now? and what is achievable for you. I mean, I might not make it to the West End now with my dodgy back and my mum moves, but I can still embrace the joy that dancing used to give me by adapting my dream. So I could get some of those feelings back again that I had in my 20s. I could join a dance class. I could dance in my kitchen when everyone's out with the blinds shut and the music blaring. Or I could choose another dream that was also important to me and maybe more fitting to my life at this time right now. So I always wanted to be a writer as well. I didn't write for years until I started my businesses. And then, I started to write blogs. And more recently, which is much more aligned with my old dream, I'm writing articles on my Substack, like real heartfelt articles about my life as an entrepreneur, the good, the bad, the ugly. And hopefully they're helpful pieces that inspire and motivate other women who may be running their own businesses too, and they can relate to them. Did you know that the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs is women over 50? We're not declining as we get older. We are getting stronger. And we are taking risks. We want to make an impact. According to Forbes magazine, 80% of the women on their 2024 list of the 100 most powerful women were over the age of 50. And half of them were over the age of 60. Like Vera Wang, yeah, she didn't become a successful fashion designer until she was in her 40s. We can do whatever the hell we want, so long as we are breathing and of a relatively sane mind, I guess. It ain't over until that curtain comes down on us. And many, many studies have highlighted that women in midlife, particularly those aged 45 plus, they actually tend to have the highest success rates in entrepreneurship. Like, how encouraging is that? And this was actually mainly attributed to life and work experience, all the things that we have accumulated, the knowledge that we've gained through the years. There is actually now a growing trend in the number of women starting businesses after the age of 50. And you know what? They're not just starting them, but they're smashing it. They're succeeding in their ventures. Like, this is brilliant news. And it shows that dreams don't have to expire. They can actually be reinvented and reborn into a new and improved version that is totally doable and achievable for you where you are in your life right now. And like I said earlier, we aren't totally ignorant of the fact that our age is going to put some limits on some things. Like, you might have always have dreamed of being a ballet dancer when you were 8 years old. But 55-year-old you probably isn't going to want to get in a tutu or manage a plie without falling arse over tit. You know what I mean? We have to have a little reality check here. But maybe you always wanted to be a painter in your 20s, selling your work in galleries all over the world. Well, you can still pick up a paintbrush, you can still enter your work in local exhibitions, sell them in shops, go to classes and learn again or freshen up your skills. And this brings me really nicely onto something I wanted to talk about today, which is the science behind creativity and reinvention. Like, did you know that your brain continues to learn new things well into your 60s? And this is called neuroplasticity. So it's the ability of the brain to reshape itself when we learn new skills. Let's put it into context for you. So there was a study that was done called the London Taxi Driver Study, and it was done in the year 2000. You may or may not have heard of this. It's quite a famous study. But basically, scientists studied the brains of London taxi drivers because in order to actually be a cabbie in London, they have to memorize something called the knowledge, which is like a detailed mental map of 25,000 streets in the city, something crazy like that. I mean, I need to stick my Google Maps on every time I go to Big Tesco, which is practically 10 minutes down the road from me, and I go every weekend. Anyway, the scientists found that the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for memory and navigation, was physically larger in these taxi drivers compared to the average person. I mean, my hippocampus must be bloody tiny then. But what did that study tell us? Well, it showed that our brains are capable of reshaping themselves to learn a new skill. Like, they're constantly adapting and able to adjust to the new tasks and knowledge that you put in front of it. Even if you think that your brain can't do it, it can. You aren't ready for the knackers yard yet. So, what does this mean for us when it comes to achieving our forgotten dreams? Well, it's never too late to start. Your brain is not a concrete slab that is just fixed and forevermore. It's actually Play Doh. It can reshape and adapt no matter your age, right? And if our brains are constantly adapting and are capable, then the only thing that's stopping you from picking up that old dream is you. And another positive that comes with age is our confidence. It typically grows with us, which is why the average age of women who finally start that business is 45 plus. Like, we care less about what people think of us. I mean, okay, let's just give you an example. Let's look at pensioners here, right? They don't give a shit, do they? They are always saying exactly what they think. They've got no filter whatsoever. If we ever have any altercations with anyone, like, you can guarantee they are over the age of 70, right? I'm not being ageist here. This is just a fact. They've usually said or done something insensitive that's pissed us off royally. By us, I mean Dave. You know, he's particularly sensitive to it. I'll tell you a funny story, actually, which is one of my best friend's favourite stories about me and Dave. And it was this one time that we were in Asda getting a bit of shopping, and it was just shortly after the first lockdown of COVID, right? So we were queuing up, we had our masks on, you know, abiding by all the rules. And we had Eden with us, our daughter, who was maybe, I don't know, 10 months old at the time, not much older. And yeah, we're doing everything we're supposed to do, right? We had our mask on, we're keeping our 2 metre distance. Anyway, we were loading up the conveyor belt because it was our turn. And as we were doing it, this pushy pensioner just charges forward and starts shoving her stuff on the conveyor belt too. Like, reaching right across us to grab the divider thing, you know, a little cough as she's doing it. Like, for a start, she had to wait behind the line until we cleared checkout, because that's how they did it, wasn't it? And they used to call you forward to say you could come forward once others had gone, right? But no, she just started loading her 20 packs of toilet roll onto the conveyor belt right next to us. Well, Dave doesn't appreciate an invasion of personal space at the best of times, but when there was a deadly contagious disease in the air and we had a 10-month-old unmasked baby by our side, you can imagine that this woman's behaviour did not go down well. So, Dave turns around and he says to her, "Oh, excuse me, do you mind just moving back a bit, please?" You know, he was quite polite at this point. He was being fair. Anyway, she just glared at him, like, really angrily, got right in his face, and she just shouted, "Oh, I'll just stop breathing as well then, should I?" And I'd like to point out at this point that she pulled her mask right down to scream this at him as well, just to make sure that she definitely gave him COVID if she had it. So then Dave, being Dave, of course, replied, "Yeah, if you could do that, that'd be great, thanks very much. And also, should you be buying that many toilet rolls? We're all rationed, you know." Anyway, he loves telling this story, right? It's true though, isn't it? You tend to find that the older people get, the less of a shit they give. I know I'll be the same. I can feel it coming already. But what we need to do is harness our confidence as we get older. Not to become a total arsehole like the Asda COVID outlaw, but to help us take greater risks without being afraid so that we can do the things that we've always wanted to do. So now, I want to do a little exercise with you. I want you to take a moment to think about one dream that you've had that you didn't pursue. Now, it could be something that's been with you for a long time, or it could be something that's relatively new and has made it onto your bucket list. Have you thought of one? If you haven't, you can always pause me while you really dig deep into that brain and coax it out. Come on, you can do this. All right, have you got it? Okay, now hold on to it. We're going to do something called the regret test. All right, I want you to imagine that you had 5 years left on this earth from today. That's it, 5 years. And I want you to think, if that was real and you did actually only have 5 years left, would you regret not trying it? Now, your answer might be no. You wouldn't actually be that upset if you didn't have time to try your dream. And if that's the case, that's absolutely fine. Leave it where it was. Pick up another dream that still holds a massive place in your heart and that you would 1,000,000% regret if you didn't at least try to make it happen within the 5 years you've got left. And once you've got that dream in your head, I want you to write it down. Write it down and stick it somewhere you can see every single day. Stick it in multiple places. On your mirror, on your fridge, by your bedside table, on your computer, anywhere that you're going to see it at least once a day. Because if you can see it every single day, you have actually just doubled your odds of making it happen. Just by the act of committing it to the paper. It's not going back in your head now. No way. Now you're going to take one baby step towards making it happen. So if you're like me and you've always wanted to be a writer, start a blog. Open up a Substack account and write articles on whatever it is that makes your heart sing. If you want to be an artist and sell your paintings in galleries, then pick up a paintbrush. Or if you haven't got one anymore, go to Hobbycraft and go and get some supplies in. If you've dreamed of being a cake maker and creating beautiful cakes for weddings and birthdays and christenings, whatever, then start baking. Even if your dream is not creative and it's just to visit the Grand Canyon before you die, but you can barely afford your food shop right now, you can still take baby steps to achieving this dream. Start saving your odd change in a jar. £1, £2 coins, they're great. They build up really quickly. Sell some stuff that you've got stored in the attic. It's been there for the last 10 years and has never seen the light of day. Get rid of it. You know what they say? One woman's trash is another woman's treasure. Research the Grand Canyon and what you're going to do when you get there. Set yourself these savings goals. Immerse yourself in your dream and don't let it escape. Maybe you've always wanted to be a singer. Could you go to an open mic night or even just get yourself a microphone and sing when you're alone in the house? It feels so good. It doesn't have to be about starting a business or doing something that makes you money. It doesn't even have to be perfect. It just has to bring you the joy that you're missing in your life. And once you find that one thing that makes you happy and complete, things, I think, just have a way of working out. And you will find yourself exactly where you're meant to be at the right time. Now, that concludes this episode for today. But I am so interested in knowing what your forgotten dream is. Which one sprung to your mind when you did the regret test on it? I'd love it if you could comment on this episode and just let me know. I've told you mine, the West End answer, And if you know someone who might enjoy this episode, maybe someone who might need a little help putting themselves first for a change, maybe they are a long-serving member of the Forgotten Dreams Club, please share this episode with them. And if you want to receive one of my inspiring articles to your inbox every single Monday, as well as a podcast episode, do subscribe to my Substack. The link is in the episode notes. It's totally free, and you will get these articles and my podcast straight to your inbox every single week. And finally, if you want any help making your dream of starting a business come true, please drop me a message. I'm here. I would love to help you do this, honestly. You can visit my website too, which is herhandmadehustle.co.uk, and a list of all my services are on there. Thank you all for today. Thank you so much for your time and listening and choosing to spend it with me. You're honestly wonderful. I'll be back next week for another episode of the Her Handmade Hustle Unplugged podcast. See you then.